Wholesalers, it's Rob Shore at Wholesaler Masterminds, and you may be thinking to yourself, Rob, you're thinking, what do you have besides this amazing podcast? And I'm so glad you asked. Wholesaler Masterminds has an assortment of product and services all designed around the art, science, and lifestyle of wholesaling. As an example, we have coaching services designed to help you power wash your practice, whether you have 2 years or 22 years. We'll offer you speaking live engagements at divisional or national sales meetings. Our scheduling service has dedicated professionals trained in the art of getting you more appointments, Wholesaler Mastermind schedulers. Our Speakers Bureau brings you amazing speakers and processes to get better return on investment out of those speakers. And finally, our partnership, our newest partnership with Allego. If you have Allego and want to get the Wholesaler Masterminds channel on your Allego platform, please let us know. Wholesaler Masterminds, happy to bring you this podcast and so much more. Wholesaler Masterminds, the art, science, and lifestyle of wholesaling. How do you treat visitors that come to your territory? No, this is a serious question. How do you treat visitors that come to your territory? I remember distinctly whether it was somebody from the marketing department or a portfolio manager or the CEO of Oppenheimer Funds at the time. It was always the same drill. I remember distinctly, I'd pick them up at some ungodly hours, 6:30, 7 o'clock's not that ungodly. And then we'd sit in Orange County and LA traffic on our way to a meeting, not stopping for breakfast, not stopping for coffee, pound through 6 appointments during the day because, that's what I wanted to do to demonstrate that I was doing my job better than anybody else. Never stopping for lunch, never stopping for snacks, just beating these people into the ground. And at the same time, beating myself into the ground. And it's only now, so many years later, I realize the error of my ways. But my question is, are you doing this too? Welcome to the only podcast on the planet dedicated to exploring the art, science, and lifestyle of wholesalers and their leaders. This is the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. I'm your host, the founder of Wholesaler Masterminds, Rob Shore. Wholesalers, welcome back to the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. Like most of us, Angela Gaffney, a certified health coach, thought life would go on no matter what. She was engrossed in her work, caring for her family of 4 and living life to the fullest. Convenience food and Diet Coke kept her going until her energy tank ran dry each night. She'd wake up and repeat the next day, never realizing along the way that a much bigger story was brewing. After a 2-year struggle with a failing body, Angela was told to go home and prepare for a progressive disease to take her life. Angela had been succeeding, but with great sacrifice, and didn't even realize it. Angela Gaffney, welcome to the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show.
Thank you, Rob. Really excited to be here with all of you.
It's delightful to have you here. So, what are we doing wrong? What drives us to do what I just described to everybody? And is that the biggest challenge? And if it's not the biggest challenge, then what is the biggest challenge for sales professionals?
Well, I think a lot of people would expect me to say that it's the travel and the daily grind and the 6 appointments without stopping for breakfast and all of that. And while that is a challenge, I think if we back up one step from that, the biggest challenge we face for wholesalers, leaders, in all industries for that matter, is that we get used to functioning in this way. We get used to going for the next sale, the next close, getting the next client. And to your point, you said it very well. You were proving you were doing the best at your job. But when we get into that cycle, we just get used to functioning like that every single day. And when the functioning starts to get to be normal, and we might not even pay attention to the aches, pain that the body feels, that's the biggest challenge and the most dangerous place we could be, because when we're in that space, we just keep on trucking, typically until something goes wrong, and hopefully not something too big.
So the biggest issue that I hear you speaking of, and I'm just going to reframe it, is we get into this dangerous zone of debaucherous behavior, if you will.
We do. And the hard part is just, I'm sure many of you are thinking similarly to what I used to think. And your body's there. It performs for you every day. It might be a little tired. You might have a little tweak here, a pain there, a sniffle here or there. But in the end, it shows up and it just does the job for you day in and day out. And because of that, we tend not to listen to what it might need from us, and we just keep on going in our fast-paced world until something breaks down. And a lot of times, Rob, we lose sight of the possibility that we could even feel better, or we don't even remember the last time we woke up with energy, or never had brain fog or fatigue hit us at 3 p.m. because we're so used to that happening. And that's the real problem, is we lose that awareness that we need to then tap into maybe some new change or some new choices to better our situation.
So before we even begin to discuss what to do about this, let's get our arms around what this is. I mean, there's no one listening to this that conceptually doesn't understand that going from 6:30 in the morning until happy hour, because that's probably the next stop, am I right, wholesalers? Happy hour, or whatever beverage it was going to be, and that's not the healthy choice either, is not the right thing to do. But what are the signs? What are the signs that I should be on the lookout for that are going to help be the flares my body is sending me that I better start changing some things here?
Well, the first thing we need to do, Rob, because the signs are going to be different for all of us, right? We're each individuals. We've got a different makeup, and our body presents things differently. So the signs for each of us are going to be anything that feels amiss. Waking up feeling fatigued every single day of life, that is not part of aging or growing old or any of that. Having aches and pains in the body that you feel day in and day out. Many of you are in cars and airplanes and seated for a very long period of time entertaining clients. If your back is bothering you every day, it's a sign. If you're having heart palpitations, if you're feeling dizzy throughout the day or lightheaded, or you go to your annual checkup and your blood results come back and you have high blood pressure and high cholesterol, these are all signs that something is not 100% effective or functioning at its best in the body.
I got to go back to something. I got to go back to something that you said because I'm just flat out curious about it. So, if you are working, 14-hour days plus, when you have the opportunity to be home, then you've got, of course, family obligations, et cetera. What is the difference? And this is not a facetious question. What is the difference as a health coach? What is the difference between, just getting used to dragging ass because you've got so much on your plate and being chronically fatigued? How do I see that? How do I recognize that?
Well, I would say chronic fatigue it can be very severe, but what I would say the difference is between dragging ass and chronic fatigue syndrome is chronic fatigue syndrome at its worst is highly debilitating. These people cannot get out of bed. A lot of times they have to leave the workforce, right, for some time until they can get back on their feet. So that can be very, very detrimental to someone's productivity. But there's probably a middle section there.
I was going to say, you took me to clinical disaster. I don't want to go to clinical disaster. Just help me.
Nobody does.
I know, but help me discern between, there's clinical disaster and there's, you're just tired. But somewhere in the middle there's my body's trying to tell me something. How do I see that?
So if you have days, if you don't remember the last time you woke up with energy, I'd say that's where you're hitting chronic fatigue. Or you have to rely on 5 cups of coffee or 4 Diet Cokes or 5 regular sodas or some type of caffeinated beverage or energy drink to get you through the day because your energy is not managing it efficiently. Or you get to that 3 o'clock, time frame every single day and you just want to crash. And you often wonder, how am I going to be productive and on par for my next 2 appointments to close out the day? You want to be as good in your last appointment as you are feeling in your first appointment of the day.
Oh, stop that. Stop. You got to stop that right there because that one just rings just such loud bells. Wholesalers, you know exactly what she's saying. You know as well as I do that when you're on your 8 o'clock appointment or your 10 o'clock appointment, even your lunch meeting, you're probably cooking with lots of gas. But by the time you get to 3 o'clock, your last appointment, or heading to your last appointment, I'll bet you're starting to get gassed out if you're not taking care of yourself. So I had to underscore that, Angela, because that is something that I think all of us can relate to.
Well, and then we have family that we want to go home to or meet up with friends or whatever that looks like. There are typically people who want to engage with us after the work hours. And if the gas tank is empty by 3 and you still have to get through 2 more appointments, you're burning fumes then at the end of the night when you really probably want to invest the most energy and excitement into the day with your family. And so that's a problem. And I would say that's where there's the difference between, maybe having one day where you're running really hard and it's atypical and you're tired at the end of the night. But we've got to have you feeling well and having energy, even in that 14-hour workday picture.
So we've depicted a vision of what some of the problem is, and we've done it quite quickly. So there's much more there, I know. But we've depicted some of the problem. How do we get after some of the answers here? Because what we want to talk about on this show is, what can folks do about it? How do they peel away good ideas from experts that help them improve whatever that improvement looks like? So, as the health coach, what am I supposed to get after here? How do I begin to do this? And oh, by the way, how is all of this not going to sound like everything I've ever heard before?
Well, I think that some of it is going to sound the same, Rob, because the fact of the matter is we all know what to do. Most of us aren't doing it. So it's not that I'm going to be on here to provide you some big news blast, that you should eat vegetables that nobody's heard of. Now, some of the reasons behind it will be different. But the one big difference, I think, that maybe what you've heard before is before we get into the nitty-gritty about how to strategize and what you can do right now to improve this situation, you need to take one step back, probably take a deep breath at this point, and know that I can tell you 100 things to do right now, but it absolutely will not matter unless each of you make up your mind that you're going to choose to participate differently from this step forward. Because information is great, but unless it's implemented and people take action on it, nothing changes. You're still going through the grind of the 14-hour day on fumes kind of thing. So I think that first step is I need you to commit to yourself and maybe to someone else tonight if you want to share it, that, hey, I heard this lady, Angela, talking today, and the first thing I need to do is I have to commit to this, and I'm going to choose to participate differently. It's a shift in mindset. It's a shift in perspective. It's kind of putting that stake in the ground to say, I can feel better than what I am today, and I'm going to take these, 3 little steps just today and the rest of the next, time frame to make it work. And then you can add to it. That would be my goal for everyone. And then we can dive into the specifics. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I think it's awesome. And the one piece that you threw in there that really resonates is fessing up to somebody that this is an undertaking that you want to begin, because by virtue of doing that, now you've started to build some of the accountability. So if you're just going to do it in the privacy of your own automobile where you're listening, or your own mind where you're thinking about it, that has some effect, and bravo for getting that far. But if you're not going to cop to it with somebody else so that they can actually maybe ask you a question about how it's going, you have a fear of letting them down, hence you'll do some of this, then that's good. And someone perhaps to participate in it with, especially when I know you'll be talking about some of the dietary things that we should be doing. It's great to have someone participate with you. Yeah, for sure. So now let's get into it. So now we've set the stage. So give me some things that I should be doing, and I'm going to poke around on them a little bit, not to refute any of them, because I know they're all going to be right and correct, but I need to get at some pathways to how we make this happen, right? Right, I agree. Let's get to the pathways. So I'm going to just share 3 simple strategies that I think are most applicable to you as wholesalers and leaders in this industry. Number 1 is we often think about managing stress and
increasing our energy and all of that. And the foundation of managing your stress and increasing energy and living well, meaning fighting disease proactively and healing the body if you're already in a state of disease or experiencing some symptoms that might lead to disease. We have to start at the foundational level of health, which is nourishing the body correctly. And when I say nourishing the body in a correct way, I'd like to talk just briefly on the fact that we've been trained very wrong about how to be healthy. We've been trained to count points, count calories, restrict, deprive, do something for a very short period of time to hit that 10-pound weight loss mark that we wanted to get to. And the mistake in all of this is that we lose sight of the quality of the food that we're putting into our body. And if you want to have quality health for this body of yours, it needs to start with quality foods, high-quality foods. And what that looks like, Rob, is rich phytonutrient content foods. In phytonutrients, I know it's kind of a bigger word. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe not. It can interchangeably be used with phytochemicals. But these are foods that fight for you, protect, and help maintain a healthy body so you can function at your best. And phytonutrients are quite simply just naturally occurring chemical compounds that are found in plant-based foods. So you know how we hear all the time about eat a rainbow of color? You hear it from everybody. There's a lot of truth in that because the color means, typically, unless you've got some food coloring involved, which you want to avoid, but the high, rich colors equate to high phytonutrient content foods. Think about leafy greens, vegetables, fruit, beans, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. All of those foods have different phytonutrient profiles per their color. And we need all those phytonutrients, and those foods actually have antioxidant properties as well as micronutrients, which are essential for long-term health. Those are your vitamins and minerals. And often we hear about macronutrients, the carbs, proteins, and fats that our body needs for good energy. These foods you can balance and tweak and assess how they fuel the body. And if you need more protein, add some more. If you need more fat, add some more. Obviously, these plant-based foods can be complemented with clean cuts of protein or seafood.
Okay, wait. Before we get there, let's roll the shot clock all the way back. So who could disagree? Nobody should disagree with anything that you're saying about the rainbow of color. Mm-hmm. So how do we help develop some better options for folks that they're steak and potato girls and guys, and they're just they're not big salad folks, and I mean how do we start interjecting or injecting, whatever the case may be, some of these other nutritious foods or these nutritious foods into folks? In other words, do I go get smoothies, but aren't smoothies filled with sugar? I mean, how do I tackle this? Because I may not be the person that's going to switch out from a cheeseburger to a big salad. And oh, by the way, if I switch out to a big salad, I'll get the chef salad, and then I'll pour on a whole crap load of blue cheese dressing. That kind of defeats the purpose. So how do I begin to attack this? Okay,
we all have to start with where we are. And no one expects you to go from 0 to 100 overnight. So you have to start wherever place you are right now and just add something in. So, for instance, if you're in the place right now where every afternoon is a cheeseburger, fries, and 3 refills of your soda, we've got to start somewhere. And what that might look like is, in the beginning, ordering a side salad that you say to yourself, I got to eat that side salad before I hit the burger and fries, and stick to 1 soda, right, so that you're not overdoing it.
Okay.
And then, Rob, in time, maybe eventually that turns into, you know what, I'm going to have the burger and the side salad, but I'm going to replace the fries with the roasted vegetables off of the menu.
So it's making these selective choices, because I can see that, right? I can see making some selective choices along the way. I could have a burger and a side of fruit. It doesn't necessarily have to be a burger with the fries.
Correct. And if we take away too much, put too much, good in right away, the mind automatically goes to, you're restricting me. You just took everything away that I love.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start putting in, I call it the crowding out method, is what I was trained on, meaning if you simply don't worry about everything that needs to go away, but rather just choose something good to put into the diet, and then as I described, maybe in another 2 weeks, the next time you're hitting the burger stand, you get the roasted vegetables, the side salad, and the burger, you've built on your momentum, and you've added yet another thing in. And then eventually, maybe that burger, you decide to get the, wild salmon instead. And now all of a sudden you've upgraded the burger. Mm-hmm. And in time, you make one more shift. And over a period of time, it just naturally crowds out some of the foods that are not serving us so well and allows more space for the foods that will.
No, that feels
and then
like
we're not in this rebellious place. It's just building on it day after day, week after week, and eventually you'll be 5 years in and have a fully changed body as a result of what you've been doing for the last 5 years.
Now that feels like a much more doable type of takeaway. And I wasn't suggesting that you were offering anything but that. But yes, some folks might be processing it as, wait a minute, this lady wants me to give up what I love and, just shift to a complete vegan diet. And I'm not ready for that. So there's got to be something else. Let me, if you don't mind, can I just ask you some real tactical stuff? Because the stuff that you're telling me about is certainly instructive and interesting, but I want to bring it down to, as I said earlier, how can wholesalers do it? So take me to happy hour for a second. Okay. We do a crap ton of happy hours. So, where am I going to less injure myself with happy hours? Because typically, picture it. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter our business or another business. You take some clients out. There's 4, 5, or 6 ladies and gentlemen, and it's like, okay, what do you want? Well, I'll have the onion rings. Yeah, give me some of those. Give me some of those chicken wings. And how about if we? And it's all garbage. How do I protect myself? Because I do a lot of those.
Okay, so happy hour. Just know this from a baseline standpoint. You have a choice in every matter. No one's tying your arms and making you eat or drink anything. That's the first step. Number 2 is if you're going to drink alcohol, go with lighter sugar options. So red wine versus white could be better. If you're going with a hard liquor, try to do a club soda with a twist of lemon or lime versus a tonic water that is just full of sugar, or a mixed drink, something of that sort. Be mindful of your consumption. There's no need to overdo. And then from a food standpoint, there are plenty of bars now that carry things that are not fried, like a veggie and pita and hummus platter, or I can't even think right now, skewers, right? That have chicken skewers or something.
Sure.
There tends to be something on the menu that you could find. And if not, then maybe choose a different place to go for happy hour if you could manage that from the start, and just mix some of what people are typically used to if you're entertaining the clients, so that you have potentially some fried options in the beginning, and then also have some healthier fare. I think even from your client standpoint, they might be thankful for that as well, because more and more people are getting into wanting to care for their health. They recognize that this is going on, and it's detrimenting them in some way now or potentially down the road.
Okay.
And here's a key tip, whether you're at happy hour or sitting there at a dinner looking at that menu to order, the menu does not manage you. You need to manage it.
What does that mean?
And this is what I mean. We sit down at that menu, and we look at all these entrees that are available to us. And then we have to select one. We have to fit ourselves into a box. Instead, go into that as if the menu is a huge grocery store option. It's like an a la carte. I might find the wild-caught salmon in one entree. I might see some sautéed spinach in another. I might see a sweet potato on some other entree, and whatever else, some wild rice pilaf or something from a different entree. When that waiter comes over, I will be creating my own meal. In the worst case scenario, they say there will be a $2 upcharge for that. Well, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'd rather invest that $2 upcharge there, get the nourishing food my body needs, and not have to invest in hospital or doctor bills later. And by the way, Rob, I'm not vegan and I'm not vegetarian. I have nothing against folks that are. It just doesn't work well for me.
Yeah.
So I do eat red meat once in a while. I love fish, turkey, chicken, all of it, game meat. So we don't have to be vegan or vegetarian, but what we do need to do is make sure that 75 to 80% of our meal is in that colorful category with plant-based foods, and then supplement with some healthy fat and protein on the plate. And I know that's a shift for the meat and potato folks. I get it. I'm a Midwest girl. That's what I was raised on.
Yeah.
But when you eat that way, your energy goes up, lots of side effects take place. Energy increases, brain clarity happens, you shed some weight, you sleep better. It's amazing what takes place.
All right, I got to ask you about one other category of destructive intake, and then we got to put a wrap on it. And I want to talk just for a moment about sugar. So don't know what's happened to me as I have progressed in my life. So when I was wholesaling, I never ordered dessert. I mean, I was doing enough damage to myself with all the other crap that I ate that I really never ordered dessert. I figured that's at least one way I'll save, a calorie or 500. So here later in life now, I have this real, I love sugar. I love all things sugar. So, just the top headlines about how we should get a harness on sugar intake and what it's, potentially doing to us and not for us.
Okay. Sugar single-handedly could be the one ingredient. If we had to blame one ingredient on disease in America, sugar would be it. Sugar itself is not the problem. It's the amount that we put into our bodies that causes a poor cycle of habit that is the problem. So if you were to stick with, 8 to 10 pounds of sugar consumption every year, you would never sniff an issue with the body. But right now, Americans tend to eat 150 to 300 pounds of it per year.
Wow.
So it's in everything. You have to be your own best advocate. If you're eating processed foods, make sure you're looking at the sugar content, not only the grams of sugar, but the serving size of whatever you're eating, so you know if you're actually eating maybe 3 servings of that, right? Multiply those grams of sugar by 3. And then beyond that, you also need to look at the quality of the sugar you're putting into the body. So go to the ingredient list and understand what types of sugar are entering into the system. If you start crowding out with those good foods being put into the diet, your taste buds will change, your need for that sugar will go down, and eventually you'll get to a place, Rob, where the cravings, you won't have them. And you might go back to thinking, oh my gosh, I love the Snickers bar, I'm going to have one. When your taste buds change and your body gets into that healthy space, it's going to taste differently than what it ever did, sweeter than it ever did, et cetera, and you're not going to be so apt to go back for it. It takes time. I am a recovering sugar addict myself, and I don't say that lightly at all. And there's not a want or a need for it anymore because of how good the body feels with those good, healthy foods. So 25 grams or less of processed sugar per day. 25 grams or less. Start tracking it. Okay. 25 grams typically is 1 yogurt in the morning, or maybe a power bar, a protein bar kind of thing, and some crackers, or a bowl of cereal, or a soda, Gatorade. Any of those drinks certainly fall into that full day's consumption. Yeah, I got a sneaking suspicion I'm over that. I think I'm a little over that hump. It's very easy. Oh, yeah. Lots of us are over that. Mm-hmm. All right. So we intentionally left your current situation open-ended at the introduction. I want to bring it back around. So we opened with this notion that you had gotten some horrific news from your doctors and your prognosis was not good at all. So how are you today? What is the update, and how did you get there? Where am I today? I run a full-time business. I've got one teenager, one 11-year-old going on 26, and highly active. So life is very good. I function at a very high state, and I'm probably healthier than most people from changing my ways. But it took a long time to get here. So diagnosis was 9 years ago in November. It's 11 years this month that the crisis started. And I think the biggest shift to get me here today, Rob, was my shift in mindset. I found myself in a space after diagnosis trying to figure out how to die gracefully, which is not a healthy place to be. And once it shifted for me, I thought, what am I doing trying to figure out how to die gracefully when everything in me, it just really wanted to live, and I knew I had more to do in this life. And that is what I mean when I say, today each of you have to make a shift in mindset and say, this is the day. Enough is enough. I can feel better. Because it wasn't until I got to that place and then took one little step at a time to get here, changing my food, learning how to breathe and reduce stress in my life and make different choices and create an environment that was supportive for healthy living, that I got here. And I'll have some people say, gosh, it must be nice to just be healthy. Well, heck yes, it's nice. However, it takes concerted, consistent, conscious effort every single day. And that's worth it to me, to be here, to be able to share my gifts with others, to hopefully say something today that inspires each of you to make a change, shift perspective, and make one new choice to support your body. Because in the end, your body needs just as much from you to support you in return. We just lose sight of that once in a while, and I me included, I surely did before I got sick.
Wholesalers, we've been listening to Angela Gaffney. She's a certified health coach. And Angela, we are deeply appreciative for your insights today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. All the best to you guys.
Wholesalers, come back next time for the episode of the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. You'll find all of our content at wholesalermasterminds.com, and the podcast can be found at iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play.